A material can give an excellent capacitance value in the laboratory and still be a poor choice for real supercapacitor. And this point is very important because in research we often focus on the highest number, higher surface area, higher capacitance, a new structure, a new material, and naturally it looks better. But when we move from laboratory test to a practical supercapacitor, the picture can change completely. One material has remained very difficult to replace, and surprisingly, it is not some very complex material. It is ordinary activated carbon. Activated carbon has been studied for decades. Its structure is not new. It may not always produce the most exciting number in the research paper. Still, commercial electric double layer capacitors continue to depend strongly on it. So there must be reason. And that reason is much more interesting than simply saying that activated carbon is cheap. In this video, we will see what actually make an electrode material useful in real supercapacitor. And by the end, we will understand why a material with a lower laboratory number can sometimes be better material for an actual device. The main idea of this video is shown here. When we compare electrode materials, capacitance is only one part of the story. A practical electrode must also have suitable conductivity. It should remain stable during repeated charging and discharging. It needs a useful pore structure. The electrode should have enough density so that we can store useful charge within a limited device volume, and the materials should also be easy to produce. And finally, the cost and large scale production must make sense. So, commercial success usually does not come from the material having the highest value in one test. It comes from the material giving a good balance across many requirements. This changed the way we should compare electrode materials. Instead of asking only which material gives the highest capacitance, a better way to think is how well does this material perform when all practical requirements are considered together. That small change in thinking explains a large part of activated carbon success. Look at this idea carefully. A practical electrode has to do several things at the same time. Good charge storage is obviously necessary, but that charge also has to move through the electrode efficiently. Ions from the electrolyte must be able to reach the internal surface. The electrode must survive repeated operations. It must be possible to prepare it as a uniform coating. Its thickness and density must be controlled, and the final electrode should also work at a useful mass loading, not only when a very tiny amount of material is tested, and the complete process must be suitable for manufacturing. This is why one record value cannot decide the winner. Suppose one material performs extremely well in one property but becomes difficult to coat, has very low density, cost much more, or becomes difficult to produce on a large scale. Its excellent laboratory result does not disappear. The result is still scientifically useful, but its practical value changes. Activated carbon is strong because it does not depend on one exceptional property. Its advantage comes from the combination of many useful properties, and that brings us to the material itself. What exactly is activated carbon doing well? The first major advantage is its porous structure. Activated carbon contains a very large internal surface that can be reached by electrolyte ions. In an EDLC or electric double layer capacitor, charge is stored mainly at the electrode electrolyte interface. So, useful internal surface becomes very important. But surface area alone is not enough. The pores also have different roles. Very small pores, commonly called micropores, contribute strongly to the charge storage. They provide internal surface where the ions can arrange close to the carbon surface. Large pores, including mesopore, help ions move toward those internal regions. So one part of the pore structure support storage while the other part support access and transport. And that combination matters. Activated carbon also has adequate electronic conductivity for EDLC electrode, and carbon is chemically stable in electrolytes commonly used for the supercapacitors. And this stability becomes especially important during long-term cycling. Remember, an EDLC is expected to charge and discharge repeatedly. So, an electrode material that store a lot of charge once but changes significantly during repeated cycling is not enough. So activated carbon combines useful porosity, adequate conductivity, chemical stability, and relatively simple electrode processing. No single property has looked surprising, but together they become very powerful. And there is another important detail. Even when two activated carbon have high measured surface area, they may not perform in the same way. The reason is the pore structure. Here, this addresses a very common mistake. We see a very high BT surface area and immediately expect very high device performance. So BT surface area is actually a standard measured surface area value. It tells us how much surface is detected during the measurement. But a supercapacitor does not operate using the measuring gas used for the BT analysis. It operates using electrolyte ions, and those ions need to enter the pores. So the useful point is not simply how much total surface does this carbon have. The useful point is how much of that surface can the electrolyte ions actually reach and use. This is where ion size becomes important. Solvation also matters. Solvation simply means that an ion in a liquid electrolyte can be surrounded by solvent molecules. Because of this, the effective size of the species approaching a pore can be larger than the bare ion itself. If a pore is extremely narrow, access may become difficult for a bulky solvated ion. So a very high total surface area does not automatically mean that every square meter of that surface will contribute equally during operation. This is why pore architecture matter. We need pores that provide charge storage surface, but we also need a structure that allows ions to move through the electrode and reach that surface. A balanced pore size distribution can support better rate performance. This is an important result. The best activated carbon is not simply the carbon with the largest BT number. The better carbon is the one whose pore structure matches the electrolyte being used. So surface area has to be investigated together with the pore size, solvation, and ion excess. This is already more realistic than comparing only BT values, but industry has to consider still more factors. This is where activated carbon becomes especially difficult to replace. Its advantages continue beyond the electrochemical performance. First, the activated carbon can be made using relatively low cost precursor materials. The activation process can also be carried out at large scale. Second, activated carbon works well with standard electrode processing methods. We can mix the active material with binder, conductive additive where needed, and suitable solvent, and that slurry can then be coated to prepare the electrode. This sounds like a simple point, but for manufacturing it is extremely important. A good active material is not useful only as a powder. We need to convert that powder into a stable, uniform, reproducible electrode. Electrode density is another major factor. Some highly structured carbon materials can form very light or fluffy powders that can become a problem because a device has limited volume. If we cannot pack enough active material into that volume, a high value per gram may not give the same advantage at device level. Activated carbon generally provides a reasonable balance between the porosity and electrode density. Then comes cycle life. For EDLC operation or electric double layer operation, activated carbon can provide very long cycling stability. It can also operate with both aqueous and non-aqueous commercial electrode systems. So the industrial point of view, activated carbon is not winning because of one interesting property. It keeps winning because several practical requirements are satisfied together: low cost material, scalable production, suitable pore structure, reasonable density, simple electrode processing, chemical stability, and a long cycle life. This gives us the basis for understanding the other side of the comparison. Why can an advanced material with excellent laboratory properties still struggle in practical EDLCs? This comparison has to be made carefully. The message here is not the advanced materials are useless. They are extremely important for research. They helps us to understand new charge storage processes, improve material design, and solve specific device problems. But excellent laboratory properties do not automatically produce an excellent commercial electrode. That difference is important. A new material may perform very well under careful selected experimental conditions, but practical EDLC operation adds more requirements. Can the material be produced in large quantity? Can its electrode density remain useful? Can we process it using standard manufacturing methods? Can it maintain performance during long cycling? And can all of this be achieved at a reasonable cost? If several of these conditions are difficult to satisfy, then a material with a high laboratory results may still not replace activated carbon in a mainstream EDLC. So we should not um, interpret this as activated carbon is scientifically better than every advanced material. That would be incorrect. The correct message is more specific. For mainstream commercial electric double layer capacitors, activated carbon often provides a better overall balance. And one reason the comparison sometimes become confusing is the way the capacitance value are reported. So this is one of the most important part of this video. A high value in farads per gram looks impressive, but before comparing that value with another material, we need to check the testing conditions. Was the same electrolyte used? Was the same voltage window used? Was the electrode mass loading similar? Was it measured the same type of cell? And these conditions can strongly affect the comparison. Low material loading in a laboratory electrode can sometimes make performance look better than what may be obtained under more practical loading. So fair comparison requires similar experimental conditions. Another important point is the cell configuration. A two electrode full cell is more relevant to an actual supercapacitor than an isolated half cell result. This is because a working device contains two electrodes operating together. Then we have gravimetric and volumetric performance. Gravimetric capacitance means capacitance based on mass, normally reported per gram. Volumetric capacitance means capacitance related to the volume occupied by the electrode. Both can matter. A very light and porous material may show an attractive value per gram, but if its packing density is very low, a large volume may be needed to hold that mass. And in the real device, volume matters. So electrode density can directly influence how compact the final supercapacitor can be. This is why activated carbon can remain competitive when testing becomes more realistic. At useful mass loading in two electrode cell with practical electrode density and under the same electrolyte and voltage conditions. This is much stronger comparison than simply placing two F per gram or 2 Faraday per gram values next to each other. And once we move toward manufacturing, the comparison changes even more. Here we can follow the electrode from raw material to the finished cell. We begin with the active material. Then comes slurry preparation. The active material is mixed with the other required electrode components and solvent. Then the slurry has to be coated onto the current collector. The coating should be uniform and controllable. After that comes the steps shown here as a calendaring. In simple word, this is controlled pressing of the electrode. It helps to control the electrode thickness, density and porosity. Then the electrode is dried to remove the solvent. After these steps, the processed electrode can become part of the finished cell. Notice what has happened. We started with a powder, but the final device depend on much more than the properties of that powder. The material has to survive every processing step. It must mix properly. It must coat properly. Its thickness and porosity must be controllable. It must be dry properly. And these steps need to give similar electrode again and again. This is where manufacturing changes the meaning of best material. A material with slightly lower laboratory performance can still be better industrial material if it is easier to process, more stable, easier to source, and more reliable during large scale production. Activated carbon has a major advantage here because it is already fits well into established EDLC electrode processing methods. So final winner is decided not only the inside the electrochemical testing instrument, it is also decided during material production, slurry preparation, coating, electrode densification, drying, and complete cell manufacturing. Still, we should keep the comparison balanced because activated carbon is not the best answer for every device goal. This point is essential. Activated carbon remains a benchmark for mainstream EDLCs, but that does not mean every future supercapacitor must use only ordinary activated carbon. Different device goals can require different materials. In a specific application, needs properties that conventional activated carbon cannot provide efficiently or sufficiently. An advanced material may become useful. Research on new electrode materials therefore remains important, and the mistake would be to judge every new material only by asking whether it immediately replaces activated carbon commercially. This is not only the purpose of material research. At the same time, the opposite mistake is also common. A new material should not be called practically superior only because it gives a higher value in one laboratory measurement. We need to know what the device is supposed to do. We need to know the electrolyte. We need realistic loading. We need appropriate cell condition or cell testing. We need electrode density. We need cycling stability. And if the aim is commercial production, we also need scalable processing and reasonable cost. So the correct material depends on the device goal. For mainstream electric double layer capacitor, activated carbon continues to provide a very strong reference point. So after looking at full picture, the result becomes quite clear. Activated carbon does not remain important because it always produces the highest capacitance value. Its strength is balance. It gives useful accessible surface area. It provides an effective pore structure. It has acceptable conductivity. It is chemically stable. Its electrode density is practical. It can be processed using established method. Its raw material and production route can be economical, and it provides the long cycle life expected for EDLC operation. At the same time, this video also gives us an important way to read the research paper. Do not stop at the highest Faraday per gram value. Look at the electrode loading. Look at the electrolyte. Look at the voltage window. Check whether the result comes from a 2 electrode cell or the 3 electrode cell. Look at the electrode density. Look at the cycling and think about whether the material can actually be processed and produced at useful scale. That is where the real comparison begins. So the main message from this video is simple. The best electrode material is not necessarily the material that wins one laboratory test. The better practical material is the one that perform well across the complete set of requirements. And for mainstream commercial EDLC, activated carbon still gives that balance remarkably well. And that is why such an old and apparently ordinary material continues to compete with many much more advanced materials. And that is also why when we design a new supercapacitor electrode, we should not ask only how high is the capacitance. We should look at the complete electrode, its pores, its ion access, its density, its stability, its processing, and finally its performance inside a realistic device. That complete picture tells us which material is actually better.